Welcome to Scott H. Silverman's Happy Hour podcast. Are you stuck, scared, or unsure of what to do next? If a situation with a loved one, spouse, or even a child has started to spiral, possibly becoming dangerous or threatening, it's time to seek help. Let's navigate the crisis together with Scott H. Silverman. Okay, everybody, welcome back to Happy Hour with Scott H. Silverman, and today he has a guest, so introduce us to your guest, Scott H. Silverman.
Well, good afternoon, Fred. How are you? I mean, that was pretty quick. You can't just blow yourself off that way.
That was my quick edit, jump in to the whole thing, but I'm fine. I'm doing fine.
I haven't talked to you in a week. How you feeling about politics in our country right now? All right, let's go right to our guest.
Yes, I do not want to talk politics.
Nor do I. Just frustration and anger. Anyway, I'm Scott H. Silverman. Please call me or text me at 619-993-273. I'd like to give my phone number out. Everyone asks me why I do that. I said, well, because that way people can call me and we can talk about what's going on. And if I could be a solution to help, a suggestion, or part of your navigation to helping your loved one get highest and best level of care they might need around anything that we specialize in here, which is reducing the stigma, mental health issues, behavioral health issues, suicide avoidance, and of course, anything with addiction. We're working very hard to make it easy for people to say, hey, I need help. Will you help me? And we'll do what we can to help. Well, today we have somebody who, it's always nice to get a young guest, Fred, someone who's, in their 20s that really can speak to what's going on in the country in a way that we can't. I can't anyway. I'm at a different stage. But, Mary Burt Godwin is a lady who, Mary, I'm trying to think the last time you and I, did we ever actually, we physically saw each other in person? Never?
Maybe a few years, maybe over 10 years ago with your wife at one of those blogging events.
Oh, right.
Your wife and I knew each other years ago. Yeah.
Right. So, so we'll call Mary my wife's friend. We won't call her mine yet. Yeah. We'll get there. We're going to see each other in person.
We're close now.
We are. We're like brother and sister. We're going to see each other on the 11th. I'm very excited about that. And she's going to be our MC at this awesome event, Living Undeterred. We just had Jeff Johnson on with us for a podcast a couple of weeks ago, and we're hoping to rally the community. We're going to be live streaming it as well, so it'll be a lot of fun. But anyway, back to Mary. So Mary, since you're new to our podcast, and Fred and I are kind of relaunching, Happy Hour and reducing the stigma. Let's kind of go to ground zero. And I ask our guests to submit questions because I want to make sure that I kind of nail things that are important to them. And, you sent me something. I don't even know what this word is. Can you give me a synopsis? So, Mary, tell us about your journey. And if you want to call it a synopsis, you can. We just call it a story. But, it's, Fred, it's hard dealing with bright people that just...
Imagine that she has it all. Looks, brains,
all the things
working for her.
Youth. I love that you called me young because I just celebrated a big birthday, which does not make me young, but I'll take it.
What big birthday was that?
30?
Because
50, friends, 50.
That still makes her
the big 50.
Still makes her the youngest person on the show.
She's
younger than me,
significantly younger than I am. So that's awesome. Plus, when you find out what she does, I mean, she's a real VIP, Fred. We just to fly her in to get her in to do this today took months of negotiations with her agent, her publicists, her fans, her family, and her cohorts. Anyway, stop messing around. Mary, I'll stop messing around. Please tell us about you, because we're going to go with the show today, and what we need to know about you as far as your base story. But share anything that's relevant, where you grew up, your family, whatever.
Sure.
This is, you have a 2-hour window to do in 10 minutes. So go for it.
Okay. I love Cliff Notes version of me. Well, thank you so much for having me on, Scott and Fred. I love to do anything recovery related, and recovery. I'm 6.5 years sober, and recovery and the program of recovery that I work has certainly saved my life, changed my life, and gave me a new beginning for sure. In my 40s, I was able to pivot and, have a whole new start of a life when I found gave up the booze, gave up the sauce. And cliff notes of me is that I grew up in San Diego and I had a functioning alcoholic father who was an attorney in town. And I had alcoholics on all sides, my mom's side, my dad's side, my grandma. A lot of family stories about my grandmother who died when I was 4. She died of alcoholism. And the family wouldn't even really let me see her or be around her because of what a bad drunk she was. And so stories of my grandma always kind of, filtered around. And then my dad, who was functioning, that term is really kind of powerful in my story because he was very functioning and was a very successful person in town. But inside the home, there was always alcohol every day, morning, noon, and night. It was like they were vodka and wine at dinner, and then there was parties all the time, and there was tailgating at Charger games, 9 a.m. Bloody Marys. And I grew up with booze being everywhere. And then I raided the parents' liquor cabinet. This is a very common story I hear in the rooms, recovery programs is people, kids finding that first drink and then raiding their parents' cabinet. I think mine was creme de menthe and some other horrible thing. I don't know. But that's what I got drunk on the first time, at 13. And I was like, whoa, this is so fun. And I probably barfed and I don't know what happened, but it still was fun. And it was just like game on, I think. But I was a functional drinker too. And I was able to really hide it. And I was an athlete and I was very active, but I still drank all the time. And booze became an obsession of mine at a very young age. And then after, I picked a party college, UC Santa Barbara. My first job out of college was on a film production studio, worked in film and television for 8 years with, drugs came into my story at that point. And my friends and I just surrounded myself with people that used and drank and did all the, party. I was party Mary, it was part of my existence. And I think I was really good at it. And I didn't feel good at a lot of anything else. That's what I was really good at, planning the party, being the life of the party. But, as many people out there will recognize, and I think I've even heard you say this, Scott, the phrase, like, it works until it doesn't work. And also I was like, super fun Mary until it wasn't, until there was that moment when somebody would cross me or something would happen, and God only knows what it would be, and I would turn into a very mean person and I would yell and I would, all the things, it was just, venom would spew out from my mouth. I became because my father, who was not physically abusive, he was, could be verbally abusive. And that was me. And, anyone who was in my way could get the wrath. And I did that all the time to friends, to boyfriends, turned out to be to my husband, to even my kids. And I drank, it was like the party fun Mary, was the karaoke bars and all the things. And then I had kids in my 30s, and then I became the mom, the sippy cup with the wine, and the moms in the cul-de-sac that would hang out and just get loaded. Or my thing was a pool in our complex where everyone would get together and drink, because that's a really good idea to drink, when you're watching little children. And a lot of things. I was going through a divorce. My ex-husband and I decided to separate. And that, in my early 40s, I was separating from my husband. My 2 daughters were fairly young. And my disease just went crazy. And I was doing dumb things that I was doing in my 20s as a woman, as a mom of 2 daughters, that I was supposed to be modeling good behavior, that I was supposed to be present for, that I was supposed to be caring for. And I was blacked out and I was drunk and I was manipulating and doing everything I could to circle around what my next beverage. And then when they would go be with their dad, I would go do crazy stuff. I was starting to date on Tinder and I was starting to do all this crazy stuff. That was like in my 20s. And to wrap it up, I found recovery. I had a sister who was 17 years sober. Who's 17 years older than I am. And she was 17 years sober at the time. And I knew what an alcoholic was just from hearing people talk about people in my family. And I had somebody I was dating at the time called me out and said, "You have a problem. You're driving your kids drunk. And of course I was like, "Can I curse on this?" I said, "F you, I'm not the one with the problem." And a lot of things just happened to me that culminated with me waking up on the first day of the year in 2016 and saying, I can't do this anymore. I had yelled at him the night before, and the fears of turning into my grandma that had died when nobody in her family liked her. Nobody in our family liked her. I had not one nice thing to say about that woman. I was turning into that. And I just had this feeling that I can't do this anymore. And, but I knew I needed help. And I said the words out loud. I'm an alcoholic and I need help. And I don't know where the words came from. I don't know, but, and I had a lot of people step in because I did have friends in recovery that I called immediately, and I jumped into it. I went to a treatment facility for 30 days or 28 days and jumped into a program of recovery that, I'll tell you, Scott and Fred, I cried every day for a long time because I was grieving the loss of like a best friend. It was like I was losing an appendage when I lost the bottle, and it was a dysfunctional relationship with alcohol because I didn't know how to live with it or without it, and I was like everything. When I was happy, when I was sad, it was everything to me. So I felt as broken and sad and scared of not drinking again as I felt when I had lost my dad at age 29. That's like the grief and the pain that I felt. And it was very interesting to me, the parallels of that grief. And I would just sit in meetings and with the sponsor and cry because I was so sad. And I thought, how am I not going to drink when my daughters get married and toast champagne? And of course they were 7 and 9 at the time. So I was future tripping a little bit, but anyway, I worked a really hard program of recovery because I drank really hard and I gave everything to my drinking and I did it every day. So that's what I did with my recovery. And that's how I still treat it to this day, because I know that I could go back there in a heartbeat. If there was a moment that I had one drink, that would be the end of it. And so I work really hard, and I also love to share my message and my story because I think if I could do it, anyone could do it, because I loved it so dang much. I loved it. And, but I love my recovery. I love my life now. I'm a sober mom. I've got 2 kids. I have a great career that I'm loving. I could not manage all of the stuff that I do now if I were still in that dark place, shackled to a bottle. So that was not Cliff Notes version, but
well, that was great. That was a lot of information too, and I really appreciate it because a lot of people they don't hear that, in the outside the rooms, they don't hear it, and if they do, sometimes they're a little concerned that it may not be what the truth is, and you speak the truth, and I think that's real important. I think that's why we get along as well. So tell us what was your biggest fear, and be mindful that I'm hoping the person who's hearing this might be somebody who has a loved one who suffers from alcoholism, or maybe is that person who potentially suffers with alcoholism or substance use disorder, or maybe they're pointing to my issue is I was really depressed, and if I could, get undepressed, I wouldn't drink. Then I got medication, so my drinking got better. So know that the person that hopefully will be hearing you just needs somebody to say something in a way that might help them trigger moving in a different direction just for a little while, or maybe asking for help, or maybe going to see somebody about checking in to see if maybe they have an issue. So share about that biggest fear about getting sober.
Yeah, there's a couple things that come to mind. And number one, I think that I was fearful of, like I said, losing my best friend, and I didn't know how to cope with anything because I had turned to alcohol for everything in my life, whether it was bad or good. It was a coping mechanism for me. And I remember saying before I got sober to a friend of mine, I will never not drink. This is who I am. It was almost like an identity for me. So that was a big fear, was losing the identity of, like I said, this fun party Mary, because people associated me with fun party Mary. And I brought the joy to people's weddings, I thought I did, and then I steal the mic and do Shoot by Salt and Pepper at the end of the night. And probably, who knows what people were thinking, but I was fearful of not being able to have fun again, and fearful of not, like I said, not being able to drink. Alcohol was I associated it with everything. And like I said, about my parents and Charger games had alcohol to 9 and 10 a.m., like day drinking on Sunday. How am I not going to day drink or go to Taco Tuesday? How do I do a Taco Tuesday?
Let me ask you a question. I'm sorry to interrupt you. How do you know you wouldn't have fun if you weren't drinking? It's interesting because that's a common thought process that, if I don't have a half a pint of something, I'll never have fun. And, sometimes I never knew if I wouldn't, but to me, it was a way to kind of say to myself, well, don't let go of that opportunity. So how did you know you wouldn't have fun?
I did not know. I didn't care at that point. I was so desperate that I was resigned to staying in every night and playing solitaire with my cards and ordering dinner in, because I couldn't even go to the local burger lounge without wanting 2 glasses of Chardonnay. But I was so desperate to not ever feel the darkness and the sadness and the pain that I had been in. I was so desperate to not hurt my kids or to not lose my kids. And the feeling that something bad was very imminent. Like I said, I had started to drink while under the influence. And so anyway, I remember in the early phases of my recovery, I did hear some sober women that had a lot of time, and they talked about going to Europe together. And I was like, you can travel, you can go to Europe, you can, like I said, I didn't even think I was going to be able to go to Burger Lounge. I didn't think, God forbid, I could go to Europe, because Europe, I had traveled many times to Europe and just drank my way through every city. So I didn't know. But what I did was I would go to these meetings and meet sober people, and I'd see how much joy they had in their life. And they were telling me stories about the fun and telling me stories about their vacations and their trips and the weddings they attended sober. And I was like, okay, well, didn't think it could happen for me, but I had enough hope to just keep listening and keep coming back and working through those first days, weeks, years. The first 2 years were, a lot of work and hoping. But I started to see, I went to, I think it was like Lips. It was a what do you call it? A transvestite. What do you call those shows? Anyway, it was a super fun night out, and everyone was drinking, but I went with a group of girls and we stayed out till 2 a.m. and I didn't have any alcohol. And I was like, oh, this was really fun. I think I still can be fun. And now I really, I'm so much more fun now, because I'm not falling down and I'm not hurting anybody else, and I'm not waking up in pain the next morning. And I have discovered that I really can be fun. But that was a huge fear of mine, is that I was not going to be fun or have fun anymore.
Yeah, it definitely sounds, and by doing the math, I'm assuming your children are now teenagers.
That is correct. Oh gosh, and thank God I'm sober for their teenagers. One is 14 and one's going to be 16. And it's, it's the 3 of us in the house, lots of estrogen happening and lots of, teenage angst that I get to walk through and not push my way through and fight my way through if I had been when I was drinking and using. It was like, I can really utilize the tools of recovery that I have learned to stay a little bit more calm. This is little, I don't know if you can see this. It's a pause button. Scott, I think I showed that to you one time. It's like a tool of recovery that I've learned to to push pause and not react. When we get that text message and we gotta write him back right now and tell him how we feel, or the email from the boss or the person, whatever it might be, or my teenager that gives me grief. And I want to respond in a maybe not so nice way. I've learned to kind of just pause and take a minute and walk away, whether it's for a minute or a day or whatever. And it's just such a helpful tool I use on a daily basis with my children.
So how do you, I ask Scott these questions a lot too, this similar, because I am not an addict and I've never lived the life of an addict. So with your parenting part, so now you've got two teenagers who are at that age where drinking is introduced to them. Unfortunately, this is the age. You even said this was how old you were. How do you navigate it without becoming preachy at the same time, where all of a sudden they just don't even listen to you?
Right. It's a challenge, and it's a daily thing. It's something I think about a lot, but I've been very honest with my girls since I got sober, that I got sober and I stopped drinking and that I had a problem with alcohol, and I never hid it from them. I mean, at first when I went away, I think I told them I was going to a health camp or something, but when I got back, I was very honest about alcohol. And they're very active. They're competitive dancers. So they are around really healthy lifestyle, and they don't have a lot of free time on the weekends to go party, but I know that it's imminent to be at a party. So we talk about it often. And I don't want to be the parent to say, don't do it, because that's, I don't want to be the parent that says, don't do it. But I also don't want to say, go ahead and do it and sit down and let's get drunk together. Obviously I won't, but I think that it's a very fine line. I talk to them. I definitely talk about, hey, it's going to be around. Here's some options of things you can say to not do it. Or here's options, get a red cup, put water in it, or put one drink in it and nurse it all night long. And if you can't nurse it and you're drinking it fast, and then you wake up the next morning with a hangover and you want to do it again, then we might have a problem. But
right.
You know what my older daughter said to me, she's like, I just want to know what I am. Like, she wants to know if she's an alcoholic or not, which is interesting. And, we don't know, or even have alcohol use disorder, which is something new to our lexicon, right? Like, that's a new way of thinking of it, because a lot of people don't like that term alcoholism. But I just try to talk to them about, I want to know. I want them to call me if they need a ride. That's another thing about being a great thing about being a sober mom, is that they can call me at midnight or 1 a.m. and I can go pick them up wherever they are, and I'm usually one to go do the drop-offs, like drive from a party to a sleepover. Cause I don't know the other parents if they're sober or not. And I wouldn't have been sober at 11 o'clock night, So I talk to them frequently. I just introduced to them the topic of fentanyl recently after a conversation with Scott that we had. And my younger daughter was like, what is that? I don't know. And it was great because she hadn't heard of it. And this is an answer because I also know they have their own journey with life and with whatever this is going to be. So I talk to them. I tell them the warning signs. I also say, you're going to probably like it. And just let's talk and keep an open communication. And I don't love the whole, the fact that it's just accepted and parents just accept the fact that their kids are going to drink, or the parents that, have parties at their house because it's supervised. But I don't think there's a right answer. I do think being very involved, and Scott and I talk about this a lot, is having the conversations. So even though my kids roll their eyes, I had 2 hours in the car with them the other day on our way to Anaheim, and I talk about it, and I talked about it again, and they kind of roll their eyes, but I just really want to be there. And my parents didn't talk about it with me. I didn't even really get any consequences because I had some bad things happen because of alcohol in my teenage years. And it was just swept under the rug, and it wasn't ever talked about. And I didn't even really have, like I said, any consequences. It was big stuff. And I wish that I had those conversations, with my parents back then, but that wasn't the way it was. So now I try to be as open as I can, and hope that they're open with me, and know that I can't control it. This is that
it's difficult.
It's difficult. It's difficult.
It is.
Did you say you have kids?
Oh, I have a few of them. I have a few of them running around. No, they're all older. Okay. My kids are older.
Oh, okay.
So, but they go through it. Listen, my youngest is 20. She'll be 22 in a month, my youngest. And she's in party mode, but she's fine, but she's in the mode. I see it because I don't drink very often. My kids often comment, they get mad at me because they've never seen me drunk. That's what my kids complain about. And I tell them all the time, you should be talking to the kids whose parents are always drunk and see who's got it worse. Because I just never did. I was never a big drinker to begin with. And I was never into anything large scale. I used to like the buzz. Have 2-3 beers, I'm fine. I could do that, but people
you're what we call a normie.
Right. Me and Scott looks at me like I'm an alien when I say 3 beers. That's
absolutely.
3.
Never would have been my friend. No. Leave him in the car.
Or no. We liked him around because he could have driven us. Yeah, he was our driver.
I'm the driver.
Back in my day, you didn't need a designated driver because those days they weren't pulling you over unless they had to pull you out of your car that you rolled over. Otherwise, those days they were just sending people home. It was amazing back in the, late 70s, 80s. Unless you really, really, really did something stupid on a stop, they would try to send you home.
I honestly get more concerned. I'm not as concerned with their drinking, my children. I'm more concerned with the promiscuous lifestyle that is in that age range now, where it's a hookup culture, I guess is. I'm trying to learn the lingo too as I'm going, but that's what I worry about because I know from experience, and all men and women know, alcohol takes those inhibitions away, and that's what worries me more than anything with it, because now they got the Uber, the apps, and all those things to get.
And what's so different now, Fred, as we talk about it, and Mary, we talk about it, is kids go to a party today. Unbeknownst to them, in the past, there wouldn't be fentanyl laced in drugs, and they take a pill disguised as something else, and they overdose and die. And that's just something that you can't prepare for, other than just preparing and making a common sense decision, hopefully informed, to not put that pill in your body at that moment. And if you've had a few drinks, to your point, Fred, it doesn't matter what posse you belong to. I mean, you hear these stories of kids that are, in the sports world, they're overachievers. They're, 4+ students. They're going to get scholarships. They come from great families. It doesn't matter. You make a bad choice. It's not like you're going to get drunk, throw up, and be hungover for a while. You potentially could die. And that's what's happening today. Yeah. That is so unique. That's so different. And no one is really prepared for it because it's happening so quickly. And that's the scary part for me.
And it is. And it is all a sport. Even she was just talking about competitive dance. Competitive dance is a sport. My children were competitive cheerleaders. Okay. My son and my daughters were all competitive cheerleaders. And the drugs are there. Especially from a painkiller standpoint and stuff. The things that get involved in that. These kids become warriors with this stuff. When you're competitive, the word competitive alone describes they're not just going to dance, they're going to win. That's what it's all about, winning. And if you're an A+, if you're a star dancer or a star cheerleader, you got to mask that little ache on your left side. You got to wrap that ankle, wrap that knee. And I'm sure you've seen your daughters wrapping those ankles
just
push through. And there's a lot of positives that go with that, but there are negatives too. I would still say the positives outweigh it, but the negatives are there. And it's just part of the culture. We got to be aware of what's going on.
It's nice, Mary, to hear you say, because I don't hear it very often, that you're talking to your kids at 14 and 16. And I don't even want to tell you what the data people are talking about, that you need to be getting to them at 8 and 9. I mean, it's scary because they're making these uninformed decisions at 11, 12. And it's amazing. So the fact that you're talking to them and you're having this conversation and it's coming up, I'm baffled by the fact your daughter says she's never heard of it, but she may not have. Because there's street names for everything too. You know, the Mollies and the Thises and the MBAs, and they Fetty. Right. The new name I just heard the other day. They didn't call it fentanyl, they call it Fetty, Fetty. Oh. So they may have names for stuff that when you say things, or we say things like Fred was saying, catch up with them. And each, generation's got their whole new language around it. And social media creates an opportunity for nicknames to come up differently all the time. Cause that's, I can't even imagine what it'd be like if I had social media as a kid to be able to, where's the best stuff grown? I mean, we kind of knew because the smoke signals, Northern California or Garmersville, that's where we all, that's where the seeds came from. But today it's everywhere. So I'm kudos to you for having the conversation. That's really important. All right, well, let's get to the next question. What misconceptions about alcoholism and recovery would you want to clear up for anyone questioning their relationship to alcohol? And by the way, I love the way you talk about a relationship to alcohol, because it was my best friend. I took it everywhere with
hands down. Yeah.
And when someone said, you have to stop doing that, it's like, wait, that's my best friend. So, but I did it. I would stop, and then I'd take cocaine and marijuana and, methamphetamine. So I found a workaround. Because that's what I did. So that question's to you. What would you tell people that are questioning their relationship?
Well, I guess, one misconception is that you're not going to have fun, right? Like what I was saying earlier is that it's a life resigned to boring doldrums, and not going out, not doing fun things. I mean, I think that in the beginning, when people are newly getting sober and trying to get clean or sober and stay on a straight and narrow, it was important for me. I stopped going to the things I used to go to. I stopped going to my book club for a while. I stopped going to places where I knew there was going to be alcohol, just until I felt I was, safe. And it was an organic thing where I just started introducing it back into my life. And then that's when I discovered, oh, this is fun and I can do it sober. That would be one thing. And then also, I think there's certain programs of recovery, 12-step programs that people are afraid of because of they have to be religious. And that is something I hear frequently, is that, I can't do the God thing. And so I can't do a program of recovery because they're going to make me pray to a God. And, it's an interesting concept, because for me, I am not a organized religion type of person. I don't, Christianity, the organized religions I don't follow them. They don't connect with me. However, there's a spiritual component so it's like this, the difference between what's religion and what's spiritual, where I do believe in a God of a spiritual being, a universe, a love light, whatever it is. And everyone has a different thing. And it's something that's not me, because I lived my life thinking I could control everything. I could think and act my way out of every situation. I, and I was humbled and brought to my knees when I got sober to know that I'm not in control, and I don't have to control it. Like I get to look to this bigger source that, an energy source. And it's interesting because, the concept of faith that people have, when I read maybe passages of the Bible, that I'm like, that didn't happen. I'm like, why, how do you believe that? Right. I question it. But when I'm sitting with a bunch of former drunks and people that were, like me, tied to a bottle and had this life that was going nowhere, and now they're living this beautiful life, I know, I see, and I feel what that power is, what that higher power is, right? It's like, you can feel it when you have people together, and you can see what it takes and how it works, right? Because I have proof in my life and in my own daily life. I have the proof that I couldn't be here today unless I had help from something greater. And a lot of times it was friends, and a lot of times it was, maybe reading a book or whatever it was. It was a lot of different things put together. And I, use the term pray in my life, but it's not in a, the way that I think people shy away from, because there are a lot of people that I know that think that turn off, because I kind of, the hair in the back of my neck stands up when I hear certain words or feel like someone's pressuring me to believe a certain way. But so I do think that in recovery, there's this feeling of like, for me, I needed to find something there in me to help me get out of that, because I needed help. But asking for help, I guess that ties in with the other thing, which is like asking for help makes a person weak. But really, I think it's like the strongest thing to do, to recognize that we need help and that we can't fight something alone, and we don't need to. We have people. I'm like you. I love, Scott, when you give your phone number out to people. I think it's the best thing in the world, because, there's a lot of people that are not going to call you. There might just be that somebody that's going to go, I heard this phone number and I'm in a dark corner of my closet wanting to kill myself. And I might just give this guy a try because I don't have another option. And that is sometimes, but that strength and courage that it takes. And it's also probably a higher power coming in to help, So I don't know if any of that made sense, but I think that there's this misconception of getting sober or like utilizing, let's say, a 12-step program that might utilize the word God, to not be afraid of that, because it's whatever you make of it. It's just not you,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Fred, do you have a question?
Well, I have a question for you, because she brought it up with, when you do give your phone number, are there bad calls that come through? What's it like? What's a day in the life of giving your phone number out?
It's fascinating. I would think if I saw someone doing that, I would think, what a knucklehead. All these people are going to call you all kinds of crazy times of the night with bizarre requests. And it's amazing. I continue to do it because, and one day, look, it may happen where all of a sudden it hits, it goes viral and I get overwhelmed. But my thought is, wouldn't that be awesome? That's when I'll start my 1-800 number, radio station with, Mary being my, my producer in the background screaming at me. I got another knucklehead on the phone. Take it. So to answer your question, Fred, I got to tell you, my phone doesn't ring like you'd think it would ring. But it will, and when people call and say, I've kept your number, and I wanted to call you. I said, how long have you had my number? 3 years. Really? 3 years. And, then they go through the story of what's happened to their loved one in 3 years. I said, can I ask you why you waited? Well, I didn't think they were ready. I said, you mean you weren't ready? Because based on what you're describing, they were ready when you took my number down. That's why you took my number down. But I get it. It's okay. I get it. It happens. So I'm surprised as many times as I try to offer it up in different ways to make it easy. Call me, text me, and at night when I'm in bed, my phone's in another room and the ringer's off. So I don't worry about it. So if anybody calls me, first person I call in the morning is somebody who left me a message. And I don't like taking those calls first because they're not going to be up. It's usually someone up at 3 or 4 in the morning going, oh my God, do you know a doctor who prescribes Xanax? Because I'm really having a bad day. And I'm like, I'll wait for them to call me back. And they usually do it a couple of days. Do you know someone who helps with that? I go, yeah, you can call the county crisis hotline. I don't want to call them. They'll arrest me. I said, well, I'm not sure how I can help you. You can call, 211 or, now there's 988 nationally and see if somebody will prescribe you medication. I said,
so why don't you give the phone number now since you're talking about it?
All right. I did earlier, but I'm going to do it again, Fred, because I know you probably forgot. But 619-993-2738. 619-993-2738. You can call and text me anytime. And if you forget the phone number, Google me, Scott H. Silverman. I'm just about anywhere you want to find me. And I am based in San Diego, but I can do anything virtually. That's how we do it. So I'm going to go back. I have a couple more questions for Mary, if that's okay.
Carry on.
Yeah.
Okay, Mary, this will be an easy one. What question have we not asked you that we should have, or that you'd like us to?
What it is like, because I was so fearful in the beginning. And so what's it like now?
There you go.
And maybe I touched upon this earlier, but it's true. It's beyond my wildest imagination that I don't wake up hungover every day, and that I still write a gratitude list, because that's something I was taught early on to help me get out of this pity party that I was in when I had to give up alcohol, because I was certainly in a massive pity party that I could not drink again. So I was taught the tool of doing a gratitude list, and on it almost every day, well, always at the top is sobriety, and that I don't wake up hungover, and that I don't need to drink to handle the things that come my way, and that I'm present for my kids, and that I'm present, because, even when I wasn't drunk or buzzed or blacked out or hungover, which I was all of those things at one point, towards the end, almost every day. But I was always thinking about it. It was an obsession for me. And alcohol was a massive obsession. And I would go, maybe 3 months at a time, not drink because I needed to lose weight or whatever the things may be. But I always had like the start date back up, And I think I heard early on was that just don't take that first drink. And for alcoholics or people that have alcohol use disorder, that makes a lot of sense, because we're not like you, Fred, where you can have one or two and be done. It is one or two is like just there. That's right. Just
a
pre-baseline, it's a warm up, pre-game. It was like, I would drink a Corona in my car and a cup on the way down to my next thing. And a lot of my friends did not know this about me.
That's what I'd spill on the floor. To find what I wanted it to be.
Like, it's just water. It's like Corona is just water.
1 or 3 drinks. Oh my God.
My friends, some people close to me knew it, that I had a problem, but a lot of my friends just said, "Oh, you just party like the rest of us, on one night, Friday night book club or whatever." It's like, no. For me, it looked like drinking, but I would drink getting ready to go to the book club, and I would come home and have another bottle. A 2 bottle a night was like a minimum, just watching Orange Is the New Black on couch. So it wasn't always like that, but it became that. And so I had a great life, though, which is an interesting thing, is that I really have always loved my life and loved, been a happy, mostly happy person, but it's the insides. It's an inside job. And it's, I wasn't happy inside with who I was. And I did not know who I was, because I was just like, I'm just party Mary, And now I don't I still don't know, but I get to find out and I get to discover, right, and I'm not,
So you had mentioned, and by no means do you need to answer any of this, but it's just something on my mind. You had mentioned going through the divorce. So without going too much detail, A, did the alcohol play a role in that? And B, now that you're sober 6 years, has your friendship where you could co-parent with your ex-husband exist?
Yeah, great. That's a great question. And I'm an open book, so I'll answer anything. So we were actually best friends in our 20s when we worked together at the film industry, and drinking and partying was a big part of our relationship as friends. And then it was, I think we were drunk and high and on a few different drugs when we decided to date. We were like on ecstasy, and it was like, yeah, let's date. And then we dated and partied and got married. And then it was the thing to do. And for me, he's more of a normie, because he could stop at a few, and then I would finish his beers and I would finish his drinks, and he would want to do other things. But I'm like, can we just get a bucket of beer and sit here and watch the pretty waves? And he's like, no, let's go do these things. And to answer that question, I think it definitely had to do with the demise of the marriage, though we had massive problems without it there, if that makes sense. Because when I got sober, I wasn't like, oh, we should try to repair this marriage, because there was so many problems on both sides that it was like I almost had to drink to survive the marriage as long as I did, because I was very unhappy in it. And he was unhappy too. You know, I think as I look at it now, we were meant to be together to have our children. They're perfect as they are. And that's why we were brought together. And now we've been really good co-parents and really close. We're still friends because we were friends. I mean, I'm assuming because we started as friends, and we love our kids. We get along. He's actually remarried, and I've had to walk through really, really, really hard stuff in recovery as it pertains to him finding a girl, my kids meeting that girl, them getting married. Now they're expecting a baby, and it's not easy. And drunk Mary would have been really not a nice person to be around through all of this. But I've, had been able to show grace, which is something I did not have back then. And I can show up in my life with grace and dignity, I think, and respect for people that I didn't have the wherewithal. I thought I did show up in that way, but now I know I can show up in a much better way. And I can show amended behavior to the way I treated him when we were married. I get to do that now by respecting him as a co-parent and respecting his decisions. And I don't always agree, and it's not always roses, but we spend all the holidays together with our kids, and we really do our best. And I definitely think me getting sober has allowed for that to happen, for sure.
Good answer. That was a good answer. I wasn't sure if it was a good question, but it was a good answer.
That was a great question. Yeah, I know. I mean, look, there's a lot of people that can't co-parent or they don't get along for whatever reasons, a lot of reasons. And I think hostility, alcoholism, and being drunk and hungover certainly fuels hostility, right? I mean, I know that in my health. It makes me angry, bitter, resentful. And all of those feelings I get to work through as a sober woman and not like pour the fuel. Because I would have just sat there with all my girlfriends smoking cigs and, drinking my face off, being like, "Can you believe it?" Yeah. And I don't do that anymore. I might do it for like a minute. For sure, I have friends that I call and get out what I'm annoyed at. But now I get to just like work through it and just, but that's life, right? I get to walk through things a little bit, like I said, with a little more grace than I would have before.
Yeah, it's good. She gives good answers, Scott. She's a good interview.
So Fred, did you notice? Fred, did you notice that the more you listen to, and it's funny when you see Mary Drunk, Mary Party, for some reason, the word Mary really tends to really resonate with that, with the, that scene, I guess, some names like Scott the Addict that just, anyway, my question, Fred, is did you notice the longer you listen to Mary talk, the more you like her and how likable she is?
Well, she definitely has I still think she's Fun Mary, probably.
Well,
just a different version of Fun Mary.
Yeah.
I'm sure maybe she'll send us some videos of pre-sober Fun Mary just to show us what that looked like. But I'm sure
I got stories.
I'm sure in hindsight, there was good times, great times, worse times, bad times, and all that. It's just a balancing act. But you definitely, so obviously you divulged your age earlier. You don't look your age. So obviously being sober plays a role in that too, in the way you look, your appearances and your health.
Sure.
And it's more than just not being fun anymore. It's also surviving.
I think your point is there's no downside to removing self-medication and mood-altering substances from the body, mind, and soul. And when you think about the fact that people are anesthetizing themselves, to what end, once that anesthesia has been removed and you start to practice living life on life's terms, it's amazing how the trajectory can shift and change But when you're in it, you think, can it get any better? Well, right now you're basically killing yourself. So yes, everything can change. And my experience is everything does. And I've not found anything that got worse.
Well, I do also see, with talking to the many guests that we do talk to, I see longevity of the issue usually brings along the solution. In other words, you get tired of it after a while. I think the problem we're running into today is with this fentanyl and stuff.
No time.
They don't have the time anymore. It's a one-shot deal on a lot of things. Yeah. So talking to your kids is one thing. And I think they need to know. I mean, just like I tell Scott every week, I think that I tell my 21-year-old, bring your own Tylenol, have your own aspirin. Now, I'm worried it's going to fall into one of those things one day. And and at the same time, talking about it, I don't want to be the fearmonger that she's 21. Go out, go with your friends, go have a drink, go have, you don't have to be a non-drinker. You just don't become what your mother was.
Peer pressure today. And by the way, I'll take it a step further, Fred, and people will probably criticize me. But I say, bring your own marijuana to a party. I mean, it's legal in California as long as you're of age. If you need
legal here,
because peer pressure today could be a death sentence, and nobody involved has the intent of that happening. Just recently in San Diego, that one guy who he just got 15 years for attempted murder.
Manchester's daughter.
Yeah.
For Doug Manchester's daughter.
There was another guy in Coronado who also got a similar sentence. I remember the day that happened, and the RDA is very aggressive, and she sees it as involuntary, if not attempted murder, first, second, or third degree. If you sell somebody something and they die when they take it.
And that's great from certain perspectives, but unfortunately, it's still not putting a dent into anything close to what we're dealing with.
Yeah,
when
and unfortunately, the street dealers don't care. The manufacturers don't see that as a detriment or an impediment to their business. But it's good to see at least criminal justice taking a position that something really, really needs to be done. So,
and anyway. I do see a change in the kid, obviously my house, being a single father and having a 21-year-old daughter, I see a lot of young ladies come into my world on a daily basis. So when they're getting ready to go out and stuff, there's 4 or 5 of them that just don't drink. There's 4 or 5 of them. There's 2 of them that love to drink. And there's 4 of them that just have a few drinks. There's all different kinds, but it's nice to see that they could all cohabit together and still remain friends and respect each other's choices. And I think that's a girl thing more than a boy thing, probably. And that's how we grew up also, where the boys have always been a little, do another shot. Come on, have a drink, and stuff like that.
I was that person too. I was the instigator.
Right. And I think that still exists within the 20-somethings today. And there's no stopping it. And you're not going to control it. Good.
Yeah. And now there's, all over TikTok or Instagram, whatever it is. I mean, there's just a huge push to drink, and they're making it more fruity, and they're making it more accessible, and it's in cans, and it's, I'm sure it was like that back then as well, but it's just so in your face, and it's, there's merchandise, and there's just like everyone, it's just so fun and cool to drink. And
it's also the titles. How about the titles of it? If you look at the whiskey, I saw this in a meme where the drinks that women drink versus the drinks that men drink, women have like skinny girl vodka and pretty girl wine and stuff like that. Men have like stink fist whiskey, and all these crazy things. We're like, wait, what's going on here? But yeah, they do market. It's marketing. It's business.
Mm-hmm. It's a dangerous business, though.
It is. It's a challenge. It's a challenge raising kids in it. And Scott does the same. He has the 2 girls, and it's just a challenge.
Yeah. Mary, it was really great having you today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me, guys. It was a pleasure to chat with you.
Yeah, I enjoyed meeting you. It was fun. Do you want me to sign off, Scott? You want me to do my sign off for you?
That would be great.
Okay, this is Scott H. Silverman's Happy Hour podcast. And if no one has told you they love you today, we love you. Thank you, Mary, for joining us. And we will talk to you again next week. Goodbye, everyone. To learn more about Scott H. Silverman, you can visit his website at yourcrisiscoach.com. That's yourcrisiscoach.com. Scott is available on all social media. And if you need to speak with him, call or text 619-993-2738. Happy Hour with Scott H. Silverman is co-hosted with Fred Carroll and produced by Venom Studios, copyright 2022. All links for each show are available in the show notes, and we will return next week and hope to hear from you soon. Thank you for listening to Happy Hour.